to Slow and Steady, the podcast where you get to follow along as we build products in public. Each week, we'll give you an honest peek into our lives as we share our struggles, our wins, and everything in between. I am Benedicta, and I am feeling relieved.
And I'm Benedict. Today is January 25th. This is episode number 124, and I'm feeling very optimistic.
And with us today is Lesley Sim, co-founder of Newsletter Glue, a newsletter plugin for WordPress. So let's start out with that easy question. How are you feeling? And maybe tell us where you're located.
I am feeling tired, energetic, and optimistic. If that's
That's a lot of feelings all at once.
That's a lot of feelings. And I am located in Singapore.
Cool. So we are, because Benedict and I are both in Europe, and I think it's the first time I haven't been on to all of the Slow and Steady episodes though, but there haven't been any guests from outside Europe and the States, have there, Benedict?
I think that's correct. We had AD on once. He's based in South Africa, but like mostly time zone wise, mostly European or US. So
yay, number
you're
one.
the first guest from Asia.
So I thought before we get any further into asking you questions, because we know a little bit about you from around the internet, but you could tell us, what problem does Newsletter Glue solve?
Newsletter Glue was a scratch my own itch situation. So we originally had a membership plugin that it wasn't differentiated enough, and there wasn't a strong enough reason for people to buy it. It was kind of similar to the ones out there on the market, and so we didn't get much traction. So we were thinking about sunsetting the plugin, but along the way of building it, we had built a small feature inside the membership plugin that lets you connect to MailChimp and send out blog posts as newsletters, which we thought would be helpful for members. And when we were planning to sunset the plugin, I wasn't so sad about losing the plugin, but I was sad about that small feature because I used it personally for my own newsletter. And that kind of made me realize, that maybe there was an opportunity there, because if I was sad, maybe other people are looking for something similar, because the reason I was sad was I couldn't find anything like that out in the market. And so kind of one thing led to another, and we decided to pivot and turn that tiny feature into the entire plugin. And right from the start, it had a lot more traction than the original membership plugin. And so we kind of focused on that and went from there.
So you said you started with WordPress. Who do you integrate with at this point?
We integrate with 11 email service providers. I'm going to pull it up.
You don't have
because
then you don't have to mention all of them. But as a developer, I'm a little bit interested. Like, how do you do it? Do you generate HTML and kind of just pump that into the email provider, or email? What are they called? Email
service providers.
Email
ESP.
Service providers. Yeah.
So we connect via API key, and exactly what you said. So you inside the WordPress block editor, you type out your email. We turn that magically into email ready HTML, which is very, very different from web browser HTML, and send that out to your email service provider, which then takes care of the deliverability side of things.
What are some of the differences between, now I'm going all tech here, but what are some of the differences between the HTML? I think both you and Benedict probably have some knowledge here.
Do you want us to basically go on a rant about how email clients are not evolving in the last 20 years or so?
Okay, so it's that bad. I thought
you don't know the Pandora's box you're opening up with that innocent question.
Okay, then, different question. You keep saying we, and I did introduce you as a co-founder. Who is the other person, and what's your different kind of roles in the product or business?
So I have a co-founder. His name is Ahmed, and he lives in Egypt. And fun fact, we've never talked or met before. Everything is done via Slack. And yeah, so he takes care of the development side of things. He's been building WordPress plugins for over a decade now, and probably has, I don't know, maybe to his name, like 200,000-300,000 downloads over the past 10 years. And so it's nice to team up with someone who knows what they're doing. And I just come on podcast shows and talk to people.
So that's all you do, right?
Did I get that right? You never, I get the never met part. I mean, that's not unusual, but you never talked, like you've never been on a call?
Nope.
Wow, that's unusual.
So how did you meet, or how did you find each other?
We met on Indie Hackers. So in late 2019, I was running an agency, and I was super burnt out and not really enjoying myself. And I thought I would try building software. And I'm not a developer, so I can't do it myself. So I figured I would do the business and marketing side, and I just looked for a co-founder. And so I went on the Indie Hackers forum, and they have I'm not sure if it still exists, but they have a section for people looking for co-founders. And so I went there and kind of looked at the different forum entries. I don't know what you would call it. And yeah, so his one stood out to me because I've been in the WordPress ecosystem for a long time as well. And so I figured that building a WordPress plugin would probably be easier for me than a SaaS, because I haven't done any of that before. And I know now that it's probably the same level of difficulty, but at the time I was told, I listened to a lot of podcasts by experienced entrepreneurs, and they always say that WordPress plugins are easier. And so I believe that. And so I thought, okay, I'll start with the WordPress plugin. And, here was Ahmed saying that he was looking for a co-founder. But yeah, bears reiterating, anyone who's listening to this, it's not easier. It's the same level of difficulty. Yeah.
That's so funny. There was a conversation on Twitter yesterday that had a similar tone to it. Someone was talking about the slow SaaS ramp of death and how SaaS is super hard. And then someone was like, I wish I hadn't picked a new type of product in that category I'm in, and now nobody knows what to do with it, and everyone's unfamiliar, and that was probably a mistake. I should have picked a existing category and a well-known product. And I was reading this, and I'm like, we deliberately picked a well-known category and an existing market and stuff like that, and it's still super slow and super hard. So I feel like everyone's always assuming that stuff's easier for everyone else. So I guess that's just universal truth. It's always hard no matter what you do.
I mean, I guess we listen to Justin Jackson has been going on about how picking a high growth market in an established category is the key thing. But then, as you're saying, even if you do that, it's not as easy as he makes it sound.
Yeah, I mean, I guess some people just get lucky or are have a good hunch about picking a particular category where the demand is just super high or whatever. But I think in the end it all comes with challenges that are different, and there's always something. And maybe you pick a niche that's super cool and a lot of demand and that stuff like that, and suddenly you run into scaling problems and get drawn in customer support, and I feel like there's always something that will make your life miserable in a way. Well, now it sounds like overly negative, but yeah, you get the point, I guess.
But I feel like, or that was just super interesting that you can meet like that. Even though I've been on the internet for years, I'm still amazed that you can find business partners and actually, have a successful product together without Yeah, without even having a video call. That is.
Yeah.
So Ashro from our Mega Maker community asked, and you already mentioned the membership plugin, but did you do any more products or companies prior to Newsletter Glue? And if so, how did those prepare you?
So my first thing that I did for myself was run a digital marketing agency. And I did that because my background is in advertising. I worked in ad agencies for many years, and I really like it. I know a lot of people have bad things to say about it, but when you're I feel like the model really works, and a well-run agency, like the business of it and the employees are like, the business is like works really well, and the employees are treated really well, and it's kind of a fun place to work because you're encouraged to be creative and you're encouraged to be, cool, whatever that means. But the upside is it's quite flexible and relaxed, and it doesn't ever feel like you're sitting in a cubicle chugging away. So I like, my dream was to build my own agency and give other people that experience as well, because I've worked in other companies before working in ad agencies, and that did leave me feel like I was just a drone in a cubicle, and I really hated that. So that was kind of how I started working for myself. And then, as I mentioned, in 2019, I got really sick of it. I was kind of at the point where I had to either commit to scaling up and start getting serious and have a serious pipeline for both demand, so like new clients, as well as hire people in a more serious way. And I just kind of didn't feel like I wanted to do that. And so instead of scaling up, I scaled down. So I fired a bunch of clients. I got rid of a bunch of the people that I worked with. And yeah, so then I started focusing on software instead. The first plugin that I mentioned, we were making the membership plugin. I did like all the wrong things. So it was my first time doing product management as well. And so, I didn't know how to think about what features to build and how to talk to customers. So there was a lot of learning and making the wrong mistakes along the way. For example, before we launched, in my head, for some reason, it sounds crazy to me now, but back then it sounded so obvious. I thought we had to have 2FA for our logins. And I thought, customers would definitely want that. And obviously, customers don't really care about that, especially if you're a new plugin. So yeah, just stuff like that. It was really bad and stupid. But yeah, so then when we pivoted to Newsletter Glue, the plugin, the original kind of scope of the plugin was very narrow, and then trying to figure out how to build around it, build the breadth of it so that it can fit more jobs to be done and like be a more solid product rather than just a feature. I think that took me a while to kind of figure out and learn. And yeah, I guess like I've been kind of slowly getting better at that ever since.
So when did the pivot happen? Because you said the membership was in 2019 when you found your co-founder, or was it in?
So start of 2020 was the membership plugin, and then that fizzled out quickly. So like maybe 3-4 months, and then we were in limbo for another 2-3 months, and then we pivoted to Newsletter Glue, I guess third quarter of 2020.
Okay. Well, I guess that's coming up on 2 years. I don't know. My time is, yeah, it is. I have a very warped sense of time these days, but
who doesn't?
Who doesn't? Yeah, exactly.
So we've been working on it a year and a half, and we've had a paid version for a year now.
Yeah. So is this a
Nice.
full-time thing or a part-time thing or a side project thing? How do you classify it?
It's a 99% full-time thing. I spend some time so I got rid of most of my clients and I kept one client, and I still kind of do some work for them on the side. But they're really nice and pretty low maintenance. So yeah.
Yeah, because I think, like, how did you keep going? Because I started with POW at the same time. I think that's probably why I remember kind of you like going for a long time, because I feel like that's such a long time. And I have been on multiple different paths since then. So how do you think about like staying consistent and staying with that one product? Do you think that is hard for you, or does it come natural for you? Do you have any tricks up your sleeves? Any advice for me?
What do you mean by staying with one product? Like Benedict has also stayed with UserList, right, for many years now.
Yes, but now he has funding and like he is further along. Like, how did you stick to the path in that first year? Or do you don't, or like how keep from getting distracted? I guess is my question.
I guess I knew that I wanted to build a business around a software. So from the start, it was, very clear that it wasn't a side project or a hobby. And so I wasn't trying to build multiple things and, playing. I was like, okay, this, I published a blog post on indie hackers, and I think like we got, 50 comments, which, or maybe even less, maybe like somewhere between 25 and 50 comments, people being interested and willing to test it out. And so kind of, I knew that there was something there. And so since I could feel that, and I also kind of really believe in the product myself. And so there was there's no reason to change or try something else, because people talk about it all the time, right? Don't do 5 different things, you're gonna fail. Like, just focus on the one thing.
I know people say that. People also say you should go outside every day. Some of us have problems with that. But yeah, do you want to ask a question, Benedict? One of the more serious ones.
I was just thinking that I feel like there's 2 parties. Like, one party is like, yeah, you should stay focused and like keep working on one thing, and then there's the other crowd who says like, start 100 things and see what sticks, and then focus on that one. So it's hard. I mean, I get it. Like, sometimes you just get distracted and want to work on something else. But I guess it helps when the product gets some traction, or at least there's public interest in it and people are talking about it and using it. I think that makes it so much easier to stick with it and keep going. Then there's still the trap of like, if it's not enough, then you maybe you stick to it longer than you should. But it sounds like it's working out for you. So I think you're on a good path there.
I think also something that both of you have, is that you are 2 people who are not like that are co-founders, and you met each other as co-founders. So you kind of have that commitment to another person to see it through as well, instead of just like for yourself. Because if I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this for 3 months, it's not really anyone I'm letting down except myself. And but if I had, like with my yoga, as soon as I have commitment to somebody else, like I do it every day. I don't weirdly don't do it for me, even though, that's why I committed, so that I will do it because it's good for me. But
so also an experience you had that like having a co-founder helps, and just like that helps getting through the down phases where you don't feel like doing anything, but then the other person is maybe a little bit more motivated and is making progress, and that then again motivates you and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think so, for sure. I think it has been quite a lot of that, like especially through the pandemic. Incidentally, it's kind of a weird experience. Like, this is my first time building a product, and I'm doing it, remotely during a pandemic. I think it might have been very different if it was not remote, and also if it wasn't during a pandemic. maybe there would have been lots more distractions. Right now, I'm just at home all the time, so no choice. If I'm not working on Newsletter Glue, I'm probably either reading a book or watching Netflix, but feeling guilty about not working. So I think like that, it sounds bad, which in some ways it is a bit unhealthy, but for the health of the product, I think it's good. Oh no, I've forgotten your original question.
I guess you answered it, yeah.
You answered it. And,
okay, cool.
And on that topic, that one of our listeners, Justin Jackson of Transistor, wanted to ask, what's it like bootstrapping in Singapore?
I can't speak for the whole of Singapore, right? I guess it's good and bad. So the nice thing about Singapore, especially during the pandemic, is that it's a really strict country. So government has like strict lockdowns, strict protocols, and everybody, like all the citizens, are very obedient. Of course, there's always the small number of people who are anti-vaxxers and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. But, the large majority is very obedient and law-abiding. And so we haven't had as many disruptions and drama and chaos as a lot of other countries have experienced in the past 2 years. So I think that level of stability has really helped, has ensured that I don't have to worry so much about things that maybe other people in other countries have to worry about. For example, I don't have to worry that my loved ones are going to get COVID and, have health problems or anything like that. And even if they did, like our healthcare system is pretty good. So again, I don't have to worry too much about that. So I think that has been pretty beneficial. I would say the startup scene is getting more interesting in maybe the past 3 to 4 years. I have to remember increase the timeline because of COVID. 2 years, there's nothing happening. So 3 to 4 years. So I think back maybe 5 to 7 years ago, when I started my own business, I was actually looking at trying to join a tech company or join startups and stuff like that, and there wasn't much around, or they were not that great and not that interesting. But I think that has changed a lot since then. And there's it just seems like I feel like Singaporeans are becoming more and more savvy, which again, maybe 5 to 7 years ago, it didn't feel like it was the case. I think it's pretty good to bootstrap in Singapore.
Do you feel more connected to kind of a bootstrapping community in Singapore, or kind of more like a global bootstrapping community?
Definitely global. I'm not sure if you guys are how familiar you are with Singapore, but it's a very, very small country. We have, I think, 6 million people or something, and half of which are
my country
not
is 5,
locals.
So
okay, perfect. But there you go. It's very small, and not many bootstrappers around here. But I've connected with some here and there, and it's been really cool. But most people are online like you.
I guess the pandemic doesn't help with meeting local people.
Actually, the cool thing about the pandemic is now it kind of levels the playing field. So I think that a lot of the people who would otherwise be meeting at events in real life, now they can't, and so they all have to interact online. So then I get to interact with them. So in the WordPress world, there's this thing called WordCamps, which is basically a conference for WordPress people. And most people kind of go to WordCamps, every month, every quarter, every year. And that's kind of how they interact with people. And so since they can't do that and they're all online, I've gotten the chance to meet so many more WordPress people than I otherwise would have, just because they're all kind of forced to be online with me. So that's been pretty cool.
I hadn't really considered it, but that's a good thing about the pandemic. Hey, we found one.
No, but I've also heard people saying, like, if you can't travel or you can't take time to go to conferences, it doesn't have to be kind of distance or location. It could be other reasons. They've said the same thing, that, okay, now I can attend conferences and be at home and do whatever I need. Or, if you have any chronic illness or anything that kind of prevents you from like leaving your house for longer times, then you can participate, and you can participate with text often, or like video, which still kind of evens out the playing field a little bit, because you can only you can only see each other's heads, or you can like turn off video and everybody kind of just assumes we're friends, we met on the internet, it's all good. I feel, and I got that, like, I think I've said that to Benedict on the show before, but I got that like early internet like happiness, like you can make friends online, that I hadn't done since like my early internet days. And
same.
And I was like, oh, the internet, like I still love the internet. Like this, which is like weird, because like, what even is it? But yeah, I absolutely had that feeling. And it's helped compared to a lot of other people that don't have any online kind of existence. I think being isolated or in lockdown is harder for them, because they don't have like an alternative. So yeah, some good things. Yeah. You want to ask your pizza question, Benedict, since we're on the online world?
I was about to ask. I'm going to ask the pizza question, but first, there's another question by Justin Jackson. We just talked about WordCamps and the WordPress ecosystem and the community. And Justin wants to know, what's the best and the worst parts of being in the WordPress ecosystem?
Ooh, this is like a...
This is another Pandora's box.
Landmine, yeah. It's like, how many people do I want to offend in 1 minute?
We won't tell anyone.
Okay. So I think like the best part about being in the WordPress ecosystem is how friendly everyone is, and how diverse the community is. So, like most of the people that I hang out with. Okay, I don't know how to put it. I'm just gonna say it in a very unpolitically correct way, and let's see how that goes. So,
do it.
Most of the people, even though it's online and I'm interacting with a lot of Americans and Europeans, I would say it hasn't been like I'm just interacting with cis white males. Whereas I think like potentially if I was interacting with the broader kind of tech community at large, that might be the case. And it's not something that's like super apparent or obvious or anything like that, but it just kind of like comes up every now and then. So for example, on Twitter, there are often these people you should follow or something like that. And then, then it'll be like all cis white males. And then there will inevitably be like a female who comes in and says, what about the females? Or what about the people of color? And then they will argue, and then, that kind of thing. Or events is the same thing, right? They will have like all the speakers of the event, and then it'll be all cis white males, and then someone will be like, where are the women of color? And then they will argue again. And I feel like in WordPress, that hasn't really been the case. I haven't really experienced that in that community at all. And so like in my Twitter feed, and I make a point of following like pretty much anyone in the WordPress community that is tweeting stuff about WordPress. I just follow them blindly. And overall, my Twitter feed doesn't feel like it's just cis white males. And so that is something that I really liked, especially since I'm not a cis white male, and and I'm on like a different continent. So so that has been like kind of a cool thing about WordPress that is not really obvious. but just kind of happens to be the case. And so like a lot of the people that I work with are also not cis white males. A lot of people that I partner with are not like that as well. I mean, not to say that, there's anything against that, obviously. It's just that tends to be, the stereotype. And
I know the feeling.
It's cool that it isn't the case, and it just kind of helps me feel more welcome as well. And so the flip side is that I've never felt unwelcome. So oftentimes people will talk about like, like racism or sexism or anything like that in an event or in a community, and I haven't felt like that. And I think it's because the community itself is quite diverse. So that's, I guess, one pretty cool thing about WordPress.
That is a cool observation, because if I think back to, because I did go to WordCamp in Oslo, because I did do WordPress back in the day, and I think you're correct. Probably, a lot of white people though, because it's Oslo, but many more women than at the JavaScript conferences in the same city. So you're definitely onto something there that the community. I think maybe it's because for a long time, WordPress was one of the few kind of technologies you could get into in untraditional ways. You could pick up WordPress from all kinds of ways. Like maybe you started out blogging and you're like, oh, I want to change something. And then you Googled and you like figured out how to do it. And then you're like, wow, this is cool. And suddenly you were a developer without kind of deciding that like, I am going to, go to school for that and all that stuff that I personally did. So I think the JavaScript community is getting there a little bit more, that a lot more people are understanding that they can get into the community or learn the tech without the traditional route, and then you kind of open it up for more people. But yeah, WordPress still like my first love. It's always gonna have a special place in my heart. But yeah. Aww. But what's the worst part then? We were talking about the best part.
Oh, can we like...
well, you can plead the fifth. Isn't that what they say in America?
It's nice that we're all not Americans on a podcast.
Yeah.
So, thanks. So I guess like the tricky thing is that WordPress now is going through like a don't know what you call it, evolution. Like Pokemon, it's becoming the next stage of evolution, and so it's now trying to do this like Gutenberg full site editing, become more like a drag and drop builder kind of a thing. And it's been like I think 3, 4, 5 years. I don't know how long, like a very, very long time. And it's still in the early stages. So if you can imagine, like WordPress people like to throw around this, over 40% of the web is using WordPress as a CMS statistic. And if you can imagine, 40% of the web is being strung along on this full site editing, neither here nor there, the egg is cracking, but the egg hasn't come off. There's still shells. Like it's still been like that for many, many years. And it's, I think, been quite frustrating for quite a lot of people. A lot of people have left WordPress altogether because, rather than have to deal with this constant change and like no idea when it's going to reach an equilibrium state. It's like just been in this constant state of change for many, many years. So rather than deal with that, they start working on Webflow instead, or Squarespace, or if they're developers, they start using, different technology altogether. And so yeah, that's, I think, like been the biggest challenge in the WordPress community for a while now. I guess like there's so much potential. So I can see in, if you give it another 2 years or another 5 years, it gets to a place where it's mature and it's a really powerful CMS, but definitely, in the next 2 to 5 years, it's going to continue to be painful. People will continue to be really annoyed. And there's just not much you can do about that, right? Like I like to talk about how if you think about page builders 10 years ago, because like you have to remember that like WordPress is just starting to do the page builder thing. Like even though it's a mature market, they are new to it. And so if you think about Webflow, like it took Webflow 10 years to, get product market fit because it's such a hard thing to do. I'd argue, like Wix is still not great. And even within the WordPress ecosystem, there are, like Elementor and stuff like that. Like it took them many, many years to get to where they were okay. And then it took many more years to get good. So I think, and WordPress is dealing with a problem that none of these guys face, which is they have to bring people along slowly because there are so many legacy users. So they can't just say, like, here's the thing, let's just try it, move fast and break things. They can't. They have to ensure backwards compatibility for literally 100 million sites. So, you can't, build a page builder by going crazy and like, here's the most modern thing, here's all of this cool stuff. Like you'll piss off a lot of PHP developers. It's a struggle.
Yeah, because I kind of fell off before the block things, and I saw that you just put out an update where you have refactored the settings page to use React, and I guess WordPress was PHP, and I know there's a lot of PHP listeners. So how was that experience? I guess you weren't a developer, but do you know anything about that experience of having to learn React and using React on top of WordPress?
So, I mean, that's the direction that WordPress is trying to go towards, like more JavaScript and React. And like I said, they've been like talking about it for 5 years and implementing it for 3 years, and it's just been a slow move. And so for us to move and use React is kind of like a bet on the future for ourselves. Like I think, or I believe that in the next 3 to 5 years, more and more plugins will make that move, especially the newer ones. They're just going to start with React from day one. And, it would be cool if we are at the forefront of that, rather than, doing PHP and then 5 years time when we're like too big also and have lots of legacy issues and then try to move. So yeah, I think like for us, it's also, a fun playground. I know my co-founder had a lot of fun actually learning React and building all of it. So it took us probably a lot longer than, if he was already a React expert. But I think as a result, it's nice we have like a super snappy, fast settings app now. And yeah, I think it's headed in the right direction. So WordPress.com, which is different from the open source WordPress, they are trying to move as many things as possible to React as well. And so, my very simple strategy is to just follow what they're doing, because everything that they do is going to be implemented into the open source version. And so if they do it, then we do it.
Sounds like a plan.
So it came up earlier today in this recording. I have to ask about the pizza. Like your Twitter handle is Lesley Pizza. I think your website is leslie.pizza, right? What's up with the pizza?
Well, it's a very boring reason, actually. It's a nerdy reason. I used to really like just looking at domain TLDs, top line domains, and I think maybe like 5+ years ago or something, they started releasing like a lot of crazy ones. And so I would like scroll through and be tempted to buy all sorts of crazy ones. And then I saw Lesley.pizza and thought it would be really cool to buy it. And then so once I started using that as my handle, it became easy to just use it consistently everywhere and become known around the web as Lesley Pizza. So yeah, I didn't own a pizza chain or something like that previously.
It's just you're really good at branding, obviously.
You can do it too. You can buy Benedict pizza. The one that surprises me that more people don't use is coffee.coffee. Since so many people love coffee, so you can, just like Lesley.coffee. Given that there's
Have
like
you
a
bought them all?
buy me. No, I didn't. But given there's like, buy me a coffee, right? Like people should buy their name.coffee and then like redirect to the buy me a coffee link or something like that. But yeah, it's something that I often think about. My biggest regret.
I didn't know about coffee, actually.
Yeah,
coffee.
There's a lot. There's like .coffee, .whale.
Whale?
Yeah. There's like .pudding, .cool or something. Yeah, there's so many. It's really fun to go through.
Benedict.pizza is still available, so you're tempting me.
There you go.
You were checking it out, right? But you were going to say your biggest regret when I cut you off.
Yeah, so I think like 4 years ago or something, I happened to see it.me, like it.me. And I thought, oh, this looks really cool. And then I didn't buy it. But can you imagine if I had bought it? It was like $2 or something. I could have sold it, I don't know, for lots and lots of money. So yeah, I regret not doing that.
Well, I regret buying all the domains because I have so many domains that this year I will make an effort to have a domain delete party because they all represent IDs and I need to like have a ceremony to like let them go in some way. Like, I don't know, maybe I'll write them on a piece of paper and like fire them, like burn them or what. I need to like release my ID for what they could have become before. Because I've done the simple ones and I still have a ton left. But before we start transitioning out, I wanted to ask you, what does a typical week look like in the life of Newsletter Glue?
Every week is different. What I've noticed about myself is I go through like a cycle, like a on-off cycle. So when I'm on, it lasts for maybe anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, and I'm like super focused, waking up early, planning my day, doing all the good stuff. And then there's the off cycles. For example, December during the Christmas season, I was like total off cycle, waking up late, watching Netflix till 2 a.m., just all the bad habits. And I don't know if that's just me, but I think I've like kind of been like that since I was young, just these like on-off cycles. And so I'm like trying to embrace it a bit more. And so like on my on cycles, like now it's an on cycle. I've been not watching any videos at all. So in my downtime, I just read instead of watch YouTube or Netflix. I've like started using a Pomodoro timer a bit more. So like 1 hour on, 15 minutes break. During the 15 minutes, I'll like try to do push-ups or something. Try to plan my day at the end of the day, I plan my tomorrow's day. So tomorrow I can just kind of start work. So like all the productivity hacks. And then like, I'm sure in a few weeks time, it'll go back to the off cycle and then I'll just be horrible and a lump of potatoes. So yeah, right now, a regular day, I wake up, I look at what I need to do for the day, read a bit, have breakfast, start work somewhere between 10 to 11 a.m. And have a late lunch, maybe around 2. And then depends if my niece and nephew come over. If they come over, I'll play with them. If they don't come over, I will probably do maybe 2 hours of work more, and then probably another 1 to 2 hours of work at night when my co-founder comes online and when my customers wake up and start giving me support tickets. Yeah, so that's kind of my day.
Yeah, what time zones are most of your customers on?
Mostly Americans and Europeans. So yeah, so late night for me, time zones.
Time zone wise. Okay. I wanted to see about the cycle thing. It's like it's very familiar. I've always also been like that and tried to embrace it a bit more instead of. But I'm also now with like a family and all of the other responsibilities. You know, I'm trying to live the name of this podcast more, slow and steady, because it's not as easy to like squeeze in. You know, those evening hours when I'm kind of in that on phase because there's other things I need to do in the evenings or in the afternoons now. But yeah, I think it's very familiar. And I have read, you know, the difference that as women, we also have less of a, you know, like men have hormonally more consistent days than we have. So trying to follow all the regular productivity hacks might not work when you
That's
don't have
interesting.
that consistent 24, because men will have the same kind of hormones happening every 24 hours while we will not. So it's definitely, you know, I made an app out of that. So, you know, that's, I did read up on it quite a bit. But anyway, I guess we're transitioning into our, you know, how our week has been. Benedict was feeling optimistic again.
It's a chorus, right?
Or were you energized last week? You're doing good, at least.
Like overall, my week hasn't been that exciting, to be honest. I made good progress on working on the integrations infrastructure and stuff like that. But there was one thing last week that basically made my entire week or month, potentially even year, not entirely sure. But on Friday night, I was sitting on my couch watching Netflix, and I picked up my phone, opened my email, because bad habits and stuff like that. And there were 2 support requests from customers in there that were talking about basically the same issue. Like there was something weird in the UI, some button didn't work and stuff like that. And I was like, I want to watch this show. I don't want to get up and go to the computer and check what's going on. So I opened up Slack and noticed that our new customer support person already had picked on both tickets, was asking about it in Slack, and our new front-end developer was like, oh, I think I have an idea what's going on. And 5 minutes later, he had fixed it and published it, and the customer support person replied to it and basically sent a message to those 2 customers. And the thing was resolved without me having to do a single thing. And that made my day. I was celebrating this so hard.
That is a win, and it's not even February. And you're right, that might be the win for the year. I'm gonna write it up. Maybe we should have a little win book, and then we'll see. Like, does anything? You're living the business owner dream there.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited about this. After it's coming up on 4 years, and this was the first time I didn't have to deal with a problem myself. It was just a major win. So that has me feeling optimistic, obviously.
Obviously. Yeah, I was feeling relieved because school is back in session. So hopefully it will stay back in session. And last week when school was out, we decided to just seize the day and spend a night in a treetop hut. And I'll try to put a link in the description. And that was amazing, but also similar type of win, Benedict, even though I did it all myself. But I managed I managed to send all the emails, and I managed to like be online and be present. And like, it didn't look like even though I was only gone for like a day and a half. But anyway, I managed to like prep everything and get it out. And I felt when I was like laying in that couch up in the treetop hut and like sending my email that I had prepped on the Tuesday, I was like, yes, yes, like I can have it all. Like the same thing last week when I worked while the kids were stuck in a cinema, or my kid and a friend was stuck in the cinema. So, but relieved that school is in session again. So I'll have some more focus time to get more stuff happening. And we got a new POW customer last week. Yay. I don't know where they're coming from and like how they happen upon this app that haven't updated in a year. So, again, starting to feel like maybe,
You should.
It doesn't want to die, so I should.
You should add a field to your sign-up flow that just asks people, how did you hear about us? And stuff like that.
It's in the first email they get, but I don't think they open it.
Just make it a field. Make it a field in the sign-up flow. We have the same one in our when people sign up like this. It might even be a required field. I'm not entirely sure because it's been a while, but it's super interesting just to see where people are coming from, and especially if you're not doing anything that drives the traffic. It's even more interesting to learn how they find out about it.
Well, maybe that should be my first update. And I could actually, because I have the sign-up flow, and then people have to add in their last menstrual date before they can start using the app, because I kind of need to know when that was. And so I still have like a flow where they're kind of blocked from using the app. So I could add that even after kind of the payment part.
Yeah, I never know when mine is starting or ending. My gynae is like, how do you not know?
Use Powder app. Like advertising right here. And I think the next feature will be the notification that can go to your partner, because somebody in this household also wants that to happen, and he has now started coding, so like he will hopefully be able to help add that feature before the summer. So, but you were saying you were optimistic and two more emotions.
Tired.
Lesley, tired.
And energetic.
Yeah. As you guys were talking, I was like, I can't really remember what I said anymore.
I
think it was optimistic, energetic, and tired. And I'm really curious about being energetic and tired at the same time.
Oh, I can relate to that feeling. That's been my
there you go.
2022, where I'm like excited about getting this stuff done, and then tired.
Okay, if you put it like this, okay, I think
mentally on, physically a little tired, I guess. Maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I guess for me it's in the grand scheme of things, kind of tired. Running a software business is very much a marathon, and it's like a grind. And the work that you put in now, you only see the fruits of it in 3 to 6 months' time. And it's just very, very painful, slowly, kind of one step at a time, putting your, 1 foot at a time. And so that part is really tiring, and it's kind of been chipping away at me. Energetic, just because, like I mentioned earlier, it's the kind of the on cycle for me now. And so I feel more like I have more energy. I'm not just lying on the couch watching YouTube for hours. So that's good. And optimistic, because we are kind of rounding the corner of a bunch of foundational things that I wanted to build for a long time. So new website, new UI, new website, new UI, new accounts page, been hiring a bunch of freelancers as well. And so just everything's kind of coming together and feeling more like a business and not something that we just kind of threw together. So feels good to kind of have that foundation in place and to start pushing it hard, doing the marketing, building cool new features on top of, the new React settings.
Oh, I know we were rounding up, but I now have a question. You were saying you were hiring freelancers and more freelancers. So could you quickly talk about how do you source them, and what kind of agreements do you have with them, or what type of relationship do you have with them? Or how do you structure the work how you structure the work. Yeah.
Right. So sourcing has been all over the place. I think it really depends on what role you're looking for. So freelance writers, I found if you just send one tweet, you're going to get people DMing you for the next year saying, "Hey, have you found the writer you're looking for?" Because like I tweeted about it. I think like maybe August last year, and until today, I'm still getting people asking. And it's not like I'm getting 100 people asking or anything like that. But actually, at this point, I think there's probably 100 people asking. So writers, there you go. The easiest way is to just tweet about it. Developers has been more tricky. I haven't hired. That's next on my list to hire a developer, freelance developer. I found someone that looked good on Upwork, but we haven't tried working with him yet, so can't say for sure. I've noticed Upwork quality going down lately. So that's something to consider.
On Upwork specifically?
Yeah. Yeah, it's harder to hire on Upwork now. Like previously, when I was running my digital marketing agency, we used a lot of people on Upwork and it was always a good experience. But now it's like not so good. I think there's just too many people, so the quality has gone down.
So you have experience working with freelancers from your agency and now
a long
inside of
time.
Newsletter Glue. So I would say that is one of those things that probably prepared you to do
I think if I didn't have that, it would have been really hard. Marketing, I also hired a marketing person. That has been really tricky as well. So marketing was kind of a range of places posted in Indie Hackers. That has worked well actually. So Indie Hackers has a job forum and it's not very... Indie Hackers gets a lot of traffic, but not a lot of people posting, especially these days. And so when you post stuff, you get outsized rewards. So I would say, like, if you're looking to hire marketing people, like, those like growth hacker type people, I think it's easy to find such people in Indie Hackers if that's the kind of person you're looking for. And then also just in the WordPress community. So there are a whole lot of WordPress job boards and like Slack groups and friends of friends. We have a support person and he had applied to a friend's plugin and my friend wasn't looking to hire, but he just keeps that job listing open. Just because of situations like this, sometimes you get a good person coming through. And so he kind of just asked, do you want someone? And it just so happens like that week we had decided we were going to hire a support person. That was maybe in December or something. And I thought, it would take us till February to find someone good. And then like, within 3 days, we had found someone. It was amazing. But yeah,
that is a great example of increasing kind of your luck surface, as they say. Like being in the community, being active, being helpful, and then when you need something, like it comes back like to you. So that is cool. That is cool. I guess that's it, though.
Yeah, we're coming up at an hour.
We're coming up at an hour. So lastly, where can people go to find out more about you and Newsletter Glue?
So they can find me on Twitter. I'm very active there at Lesley_pizza, LESLEY_PIZZA. And Newsletter Glue you can just Google Newsletter Glue or type in newsletterglue.com and we'll come up.
Cool. And there will be links in the show notes. And also, great name, by the way.
Thanks.
Like the first time I was like, that is a great name. The first time I saw that.
Yeah, I'm like pretty obsessive about choosing good names. So I think it took me 10 days or something to thinking obsessively about it, actively and obsessively about it to come up with it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
very
thanks.
Cool. Cool. Dan, thanks a lot for coming on. It was a pleasure to talk with you. And all the best for Newsletter Glue and whatever you're up online and with your life and everything.
See you around the interwebs.
Yep.
See you around the interwebs.
Bye.
Bye.